And all is right with the world, at least in the Buckeye State. Welcome into the college football. This is the college football show. And this is the national championship game. And it was a heck of a ball game. It didn't look like it at times, as Ohio State was by far the superior team for some of the night, maybe most of the night. But Notre Dame was scrappy, tenacious, disciplined, tough, and did not give in, did not give up, and certainly made it a ball game. But we've got a national champion for the first ever 12-team playoff, and they made it through the most daunting run in the history of postseason football and college football. That's not debatable. And Ohio State's the national champion. 34-23, good ball game. Once again, Ohio State, as we predicted way back when, and I hung with my prediction, and certainly a lot of people joined me during the offseason to say, this is the best football team in America. And they looked like it most of 2024. I felt as though the regular season showed Ohio State most of the time played like the best team in the country. But after a certain day in Columbus, the last weekend of November, there were certainly some doubters that, and the bandwagon got plenty of room on it at that point. But Ohio State got it together, and credit to Ryan Day and his coaching staff. They did a remarkable job, and the players. And once again, our congratulations to Notre Dame as well. They played an excellent football game. But the difference between these two football teams, this game pretty much played out as expected, did it not? Really good football teams, somewhat a competitive game, a good game, a game that, because of Notre Dame's tenaciousness and because Ohio State made a couple miscues, extended out to a dramatic situation late. But Ohio State, much more explosive in the passing game and just a more talented football team, again, wins the national championship. I would love to spend the night with you, but that is up to you. So we would love to hang around for a second hour. We've just posted our instant analysis, so we apologize. That's why we are sometimes late after the ball games on Saturday nights and on this Monday national championship night. So we would love to take it to an hour number 2. We will take your comments and questions there in the chat. Please contribute with the super chat option so we can see those comments and questions that you would like to have posted and responded to. And we will get right to it. All right, to the phone lines. And we got Michael on the line. Michael, what's going on?
Hey, Mark, congratulations, sir. I'm so happy for you and the Ohio State Nation.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, I was in a little bit of a discussion earlier and stuff like that. When was the last time you seen Ohio State literally balance both in the run game and passing game, even though they had 10 more plays rushing than they did running?
When have I seen that?
Yeah, because I think this is the first time this year they was like literally. Because if you look at the yardage, it was like, within 10 yards of each other or a few yards of each other?
Yeah, they had a balanced game plan. They've been balanced during the playoff. They've been really balanced. Will Howard has not thrown more than like 25 or 26 passes.
Mm-hmm. I was just wondering stuff like that. And then also stuff like this. Team control. I really thought Ohio State had dominated team control tonight, and they just kind of let off the pedal there in the third quarter and part of the fourth quarter and stuff like that. Because the way they was going, I thought this was going to be like a 42-45 to blowout. But give credit to Notre Dame for fighting back and not giving up until the end.
Absolutely.
My thing is this, though, Mark. If the Big Ten goes 3 for 3 next year, are we going to see a shift in the domination of college football?
Well, if you're talking about the elite of college football, I think that the Big Ten had arguably the 2 best teams in the country, maybe the 3 best teams in the country, or 3 of the top 4 or 5 or 6 already this season. But if we're talking a top to bottom evaluation of the Big Ten, that's certainly a different discussion. But the Big Ten has had the best team in America 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, the Big Ten has the elite locked down.
Mm-hmm.
The elite, the best of the elites are in the Big Ten. But if you're talking top to bottom, we're diving into that in a few days, but that's not for tonight.
Okay. No, it's not. And where's your Schleicher jersey? I thought you could be wearing that tonight. Mark, you
I
let the
wore my
Buckeye Nation
Carolina
down.
blue. I didn't even start watching this game until about 9:00.
Oh, wow. Because what's weird, the way the first half went, it was like boom, boom, boom.
Well, I
It's already
saw every
halftime.
play of the game. I saw every play. I didn't miss any of the game. I'm just saying I didn't start watching until like 9:00.
Boy, because that was an impressive drive for Notre Dame to start the game, though.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. That's how they wanted to play. And the one little wrinkle they put into that was, besides playing exactly the way they want to play, although I don't know that you can exhaust your quarterback with 9 carries in a drive, but they did switch up the tempo and they kept the Buckeyes on their heels by pushing the tempo early in the drive.
Yeah. Other than that, just say, I guess, say Will Howard, congratulations for being the MLB.
He was phenomenal. If I hear another freaking word about Will Howard not being an exceptional quarterback, I'm going to lose my mind. I don't know what people are watching.
Yeah. One last thing before I let you go is, why did Notre Dame send 7 and just have single high coverage on Smith there on the 57-yard catch?
Instead of doing like they might have been partially banking on Ohio State playing it conservatively. I can't answer that other than Ohio State looked like they were, content to tuck it in and let their defense defend the field in the final minute.
Yeah, because I was in another stream and watching the game and stuff like that. And I was talking to the guy. He said, Ohio State getting ready to bust one here in a minute. And sure enough, they did. And that's what won the game for them. I thought, or sealed the game.
Well, it was a great route.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith, when he's sitting there one-on-one and then he runs right at Christian Gray and forces him to have to, obviously, if a guy of that speed and talent is running right at you and he's starting to run a post, you've got to respect that. And then he backs off. And then Howard knew, and they had it perfectly timed. That's why these guys practice over and over and over and over. The timing was exceptional to when he broke off the route and started to veer toward the sideline is when the ball was in the air and he made his separation. And that made the play, and that secured the national championship.
I thought the play that showed me Notre Dame was going to win. I mean, not Notre Dame, but Ohio State was going to win. Is when that cornerback, number 29 for Notre Dame, kept jumping up and down saying, hey, I need help over here. When Smith scored the first touchdown on a 10-yard.
Yeah, I did not understand that.
He could have crawled in, Mark.
Well, what I didn't understand was Christian Gray was the same Christian Gray identified that Jeremiah Smith is right in front of me, but I know based on my responsibility that I have to cover whomever. He just started running to the other side of the field, but that left Jeremiah Smith all by himself. And whoever Christian Gray picked up, he was double covered anyway. He's pointing it out. And I know if that wasn't the right coverage, that he would have gotten reamed if he would have just taken Jeremiah Smith and broken coverage and broken and freelance. But
was it Tater or was it Ibuka? He was supposed to be
right
covered
in front of him.
Was it Tater or Ibuka? Was it Tater or was it Ibuka? I can't remember. He was supposed to be covered because the receiver went in motion.
Yeah.
But one last thing before I let you go, because I know you got a ton of Ohio State callers waiting and stuff like that. Is Junkins coming back next year? Is he going to be the primary running back?
That's a great question. He played, let's see, these 2 seasons at Ole Miss. He must have another year of eligibility. He must be a senior coming up, but I would expect him to go into the NFL draft.
Okay, because I think this was Henderson's last game too, wasn't it?
Yes.
So if they both go, who's the primary running back for Ohio State next year? And who's going to be the quarterback for them?
Oh, man, you're making me go deep into the roster, and I know these names, but I don't know off the top of them. Do not ask me any questions. But the national championship game just ended like an hour ago.
Okay, I'm sorry.
What are we talking about? We've got 7 months to talk about that.
All right. I know you're enthusiastic. You probably did jumping jacks and bounced off the wall and stuff.
I really didn't.
Jump around, but
I really didn't. People would be surprised. That was not in me tonight. I was elsewhere mentally, but yes, it's a great win.
Yeah, I'm having a little bit of an issue with getting the book. I'm going to hopefully get that squared away either tomorrow or Wednesday.
Okay,
Just
Michael,
having
you,
stress
you
with
don't
it.
need to discuss like personal business over these
Okay.
calls. I don't know why you do that all the time. Please stop doing that.
Yes, sir. All right.
Okay, Michael,
Seriously,
have a good night.
congratulations.
All right, let's get to our next caller. We got Rob on the line. Rob, how you doing tonight?
I'm actually doing pretty good, Mark. And first thing I want to say is congratulations to you and Ohio
Thank
State.
you.
You guys clearly had the best team in the country this year. And, I think most years if Notre Dame loses a national championship like this, I'd be kind of hurt. I don't feel bad. I actually feel pretty good because I expected this was going to happen. I knew Ohio State was the better team. I knew Notre Dame could win. Like, if they play this game 100 times, Notre Dame's going to get some wins. But it was clear that Ohio State was the better team tonight. They played a cleaner game, even though they did have some penalties in the second half. Notre Dame shot themselves in the foot so many times in that first half on both sides of the ball. It was no question. I mean, there was no doubt why they were in such a big hole. But you also have to give mad props to Ohio State for forcing Notre Dame into some of those mistakes as well. So I've got nothing but respect for that team. Ryan Day coached a great game. His coordinators, the players performed amazingly. And mad props to Will Howard and Riley Leonard for balling out. Like, both of those guys played like champions tonight. It was, I saw a comment on Reddit saying when Will Howard whispered into Riley Leonard's ear, he goes, "Are you sure we're not related?" I thought that was kind of a funny comment because they played almost a mirror of a game. And it's a shame one of them had to lose, but yeah, what a game. I mean, Notre Dame had their chances. They couldn't quite get it. Ohio State was just too much, but that was a really fun game, and I had a great time at the bar with my family and friends watching it.
It was a great game, and congratulations to you and Notre Dame. That was an exceptional season, and Notre Dame should not now be discussed in terms of being some kind of second-tier team or has-been team or anything like that. No, there was not a national championship that could be hoisted for this particular season, and technically it's still a 1988 of course, being the last year. But if we're talking about what's going on right now in college football, this is a program to be reckoned with. It's a head coach to be reckoned with. It's an exceptional football team that was just ravaged with injuries to of course, their best defensive linemen and, across the offensive front that adapted and played great and won 3 football games against really good football teams and would have been the one to have completed the most daunting postseason run and was down 31-7 to just a juggernaut. And they fought back and they were within 1 score. So they were great. They didn't give up. They stayed disciplined. I heard Ohio State's left tackle Donovan Jackson say this week that in facing Notre Dame, these other 2 games, that he was expecting to face the most disciplined, toughest team that he's seen. That's what he saw the other 2 games, and that's what he expected to see. That's what he saw on tape, and he knew that it would be a tremendous challenge.
Yeah, and I don't really make any excuses, for the injuries or this or that. I think, you make it this far in the postseason, and every team's going to be dealing with injuries somewhere. So it's just part of the game. And Notre Dame, and I will say I don't know what was going on with Jeremiah Love. It seemed like, when your best player is on the field and you just don't go to him, he must have been. I want to look into what was going on because he must have been pretty banged up or something because they just didn't give him any touches, like hardly at all. So, but that's okay. Like I said, Riley Leonard really stepped up and he played maybe the best game of his life tonight. Against that ridiculous Ohio State defense. He was able to make some great throws. He was able to stand in the pocket, take hits. He was able to run the ball really so much up the middle, whatever, design runs or scrambles. And again, Will Howard as well. So, yeah, I don't want to hear anybody. I saw some ridiculous comments, like I saw a comment during the game that, like, why is Notre Dame taking SEC playoff spots? It's like, well, first of all, we beat the SEC champion.
Oh, my word.
Secondly, we saw what Ohio State did to Tennessee and what, Notre Dame did to Georgia, what Ohio State did to Texas. Like, this was not the SEC's year. Look, they're a great conference. They've been the best conference in college football for a large majority of the recent history, but no one was stealing SEC spots this year that didn't deserve it. So I think both Ohio State and Notre Dame proved that they are probably, maybe if they're not the best 1 and 2, Ohio State's clearly the best team in the country. I'd say Notre Dame's like clearly top 3. I'd say maybe Oregon was better. Maybe Oregon and Notre Dame are the only teams to score more than 20 points against Ohio State this year. Just goes to show you how amazing that Ohio State defense is. And sure, missed field goal. I didn't like that call. I thought they should have gone for it on 4th. I was talking to my brother about it at the time. I said, this might bite them in the butt, but there's no guarantee they get a touchdown if they go for it anyway. So, it's a 50-50 split. And I still think Marcus Freeman, for the most part, I didn't like the fake punt either. There was 2 calls I didn't really like that he made. But aside from that, I think he coached a pretty good game tonight. It's just Ohio State was just too good, and they deserve the championship. That's all I can say.
I liked both of those decisions. Now, I think that they're both debatable, but at 31-7, and they obviously called a good play. If the play would have been executed, it would have been converted, of course. If the Angeli throws a better pass, or Liaison could have caught the ball,
right?
He had to dive for it, but could have been caught. It was right in his chest. Once he did dive for it, it's executed, and then they keep momentum. I just think that he was going for broke and just thought, we cannot punt the ball back to this team that has scored 4 consecutive touchdowns and then this field goal, 5 straight possessions with points on the board. And then in terms of the field goal, again, because they were shoved so far out near the 10-yard line, I just thought it was a low percentage play to go for it. And to think 31-13, you need 2 touchdowns, you win the game, versus 31-15, 2 touchdowns plus the 2-point conversions just to get you to overtime. I think that field goal is more significant than maybe some other people do.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they should have punted it when they did the fake punt. I think they should have just ran it with Riley Leonard again or something. I wanted them to go for it. I just thought they were having so much success with Riley Leonard running up the middle. But yeah, I agree. The field goal was a little bit more that one. I agree. I think you could go either way. But I'm not upset with either play, really. I just think those were, if there's any 2 plays in the game that I could, disagree with Freeman, I think those would have been it. But again, nothing. I'm not taking anything away. I'm not making excuses for Notre Dame. Ohio State was the better team. They deserve the championship. So I feel great. I think the future is great under Marcus Freeman. I think Notre Dame's in a good spot, and I think, props to both teams, but especially Ohio State. And I'll get off here because I know you got a lot of callers. But yeah, congratulations again, Mark. Well-deserved championship for you.
Well, Rob, that's very gracious of you, and congratulations on an amazing season. And again, yes, you just said it. The future is extremely bright for Notre Dame football.
All right. Awesome. Have a great night, Mark.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Good to hear from Rob. Notre Dame fans, again, your football program is in the best place it's been in since 1993-94. Think about that. I know it's disappointing to lose, and especially when you get your hopes up when, okay, it's slipping away. Well, you come out and just lower the boom and get that drive, touchdown, just a remarkable drive, just a remarkably executed drive. Notre Dame's offensive line on that first drive made Ohio State look like a bunch of kindergartners, made them look like just nothing. Every time they had a 3rd and short, 4th and short, they just pushed them like 5 yards down the field. These little quarterback keepers were it was somewhat embarrassing, like how Ohio State got manhandled on that first drive. Now, if you watch enough Ohio State football, even with an elite defense, you know that their defense always gets off to bad starts. They may not give up a touchdown on the first drive, but they are notorious for giving up yardage and usually touchdowns on the first drive. So they always get off to bad starts on defense. But Notre Dame came out, looked great. And again, this football program at Notre Dame is in the best shape. It's been in best hands. I did not necessarily, was I sold on the Marcus Freeman hire? I understood it. I didn't criticize it because I understood what they saw in him. And obviously he had to work his way and grow into the position slightly. Not that he did a poor job initially, but I think it's taken him some time, and certainly Notre Dame fans are ecstatic that they made a trade of sorts, Brian Kelly for Marcus Freeman. And Brian Kelly is actually a good football coach. It's not like he's a bad football coach, but in comparison right now, that's what he's looking like. All right, we appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football, and we appreciate all sorts of folks stepping up here. Thank you for that. David Sobel, thank you so much for the contribution. Says, go Buckeyes. And he's got his super chat in red. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, David. Thank you for being here. Erwin says, these jolly days of priceless worth, by far the gladdest days on earth, soon will pass, and we not know how dearly we love Ohio. Wow. Is that taken from Carmen, Ohio? I believe that would be my guess. I've never been one to know the words of fight songs. I've never been that guy. So Erwin, I'm actually going to read that again. Thank you for the super chat. It was so poorly or so beautifully stated there, whether those are your words or I believe, again, it sounds like it's probably Carmen, Ohio. These jolly days of priceless worth, by far the gladdest days on earth, soon will pass, and we not know how dearly we love Ohio. Very nice. Very nice. Then we've got Kyle Pickett chiming in. Kyle, it is always great to see you. Thank you so much for your contribution. We appreciate you. Congrats, Mark, and all other Ohio State Buckeye fans. I appreciate that. I truly do. Thank you so much for the contribution and for the sentiment. I would also say that part of me longs for the days when nobody knew who I rooted for. And probably no one I'm talking to right now even remembers that. They're thinking, well, I've been watching for a year and everybody knows that you're an Ohio State fan. There was actually a time, for a long period of time, people did not know who I rooted for. And I wore that as a badge of honor that people could not figure it out. All right, David, thank you so much for the contribution. Super sticker out of David. And we will keep these various contributions on the screen to pay honor to and recognize our fine contributors there. David, thank you so much for that. Also want to let everyone know that's watching, like the video, subscribe, do all those good things. We appreciate the financial contributions, but certainly we do not expect them in the way that we certainly want to run a business here at the Voice of College Football. Sponsorships, ad revenue, Amazon link, all those things that do not take from you, but we appreciate so much those of you who are contributing financially, and we appreciate everyone who contributes in any way with a comment, like, subscribe. All those are appreciated because we understand that not everyone is able to contribute in that way. Daniel, thank you so much for the contribution and has been a member for 21 months, OHIO champs. And I will mention this before I take the next call, that in regards to our memberships that are both on Patreon and here on YouTube, we are going to all get together, even non-members. We're going to have a big live stream. We're going to talk about what you would like to see on YouTube and on Patreon as members, because we want to supply extra content, exclusive content here at the Voice of College Football. All right. We got Dr. Buckeye checking in as expected.
Yes, sir.
All right.
You hear that one, Mark?
Well,
Sorry.
This may be the one time that I don't know. It depends on what kind of mood I'm in. If we get demonetized because you just played that,
well,
but, you may owe me like, I don't know, $50 or something.
I'm sorry. I know it's not Elvis, but I thought it's got a nice ring to it tonight, my friend.
People have done that before, and we got our live stream demonetized.
I didn't want to get you in trouble. I figured you jumped.
Of course
Well,
you did.
Well,
Anyway, go
I
ahead.
thought you jumped the shark earlier with the F bombs. I've heard Mark Roger utter 2 F bombs in my life, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, and one of them was earlier on the live stream at 5.
That was a different stream. Number one, YouTube doesn't care about people laying down F-bombs. They don't care about that. They care about copyrighted music. But anyway,
All right.
let's get to the game.
Please, let's do that, Mark. By the way, I just want to say hello and thanks to Mark's largest fan base for joining us tonight in the chat to celebrate Ohio State's national championship. Thank you for joining us and in celebration of this magnificent event, Mark, because it was hard to believe that I was on a show with you. Gosh, how long ago was that? When I was made a call about a certain game that didn't go our way, Mark.
Yes, you were frustrated, and
Yeah.
rightfully so. Rightfully so. And yes, you made certain claims that were not necessarily that off track,
No.
according to some. Now, I was a little bit more level-headed and more on a certain coach's side, and tried to pull you back into the fold in regards to the belief that he was the right guy to be leading this football program.
You were making Bobby Bowden and Tom Osborne comparisons at the time, I believe, Mark, and I was just wondering why you were doing that, and I was just
I remember your report to that.
Yes.
We also were witnessing a graphic near the end of this game that was placing Ryan Day next to guys in grainy black and white photos.
Yes, like Frank Leahy and Rockney, Walter Camp, I believe, was the other coach that was up there. Weren't those the 3 coaches,
Wow.
Mark?
Yeah, I was going to my calculator. I was trying to figure out, I thought Urban Meyer was in that top 3 or 4, but regardless, that's for another day. But another day, pardon the pun. But yes, anything that is stated about Ryan Day after this is laughable.
Yeah.
It's laughable. They just beat top 10 Tennessee, laid them to waste. Yeah. They took on Oregon, the only undefeated team in college football, and blasted them. They took on mighty Texas, really talented team, extremely talented team. And when it counted, they pulled through. And then they go up against Notre Dame, another behemoth of the sport, of course, all time. They're equal, and took them down. It's the most historic from the standpoint of competition, the most daunting historic run in the postseason in the history of college football. And that can't be argued.
That's right. Did you see they listed 5, I believe, what was it, top AP, top 10 wins there, Mark, if I'm not mistaken, which broke the record with LSU, I believe.
Oh, wow. I did not realize that. So that's with the Penn State win.
Yep.
And I guess Indiana.
Right. That's correct.
Okay.
You think of this run that they had. I mean, what is it, Mark? So his name will go down with Paul Brown, Woody Hayes, Jim Tressel, and Urban Meyer. Now Ryan Day.
Yes. And that is 3 consecutive Ohio State coaches who did win the national championship.
I've always tried to be realistic about my expectations about what this program should be and what they should accomplish. And, I do think for the talent that we've had over the years, and I know people have said, Ohio State's produced more first-round draft picks than any program in the history of college football. They've got I think the second most Heisman Trophy winners in the history of college football. They've been the most consistent program over a long, long period of time in college football. And we shouldn't have to apologize for that. And, I think a lot of people would always say, well, why haven't you won more championships? Or why haven't you won more championships? As if that's an easy thing to do. And you've done a great job in the past, I know, Mark, of outlining, how things were different in the poll era, of course, we've played in 6 national championships and went 3-3 in them. I don't think that's all bad. And I don't think you have to apologize for that either. And I think for a program like this to win a national title every decade is a great accomplishment. And I don't, I'm not, people think you should win a national championship every year. I think a lot of people got spoiled by the Saban era, that they think that it should basically be that easy, Mark, that you should be able to do it, fairly routinely as he did it. And he made it look fairly easy, and all three are different for me in my lifetime. I mean, 02 was just a dream season. And I still believe that victory over Miami might be the greatest victory in the history of Ohio State. To beat that Miami team, I always said for years, when we had an awful record against the SEC, to me, that was like beating 3 SEC teams, because that team had more than SEC talent that night, and, the Urban Meyer one wasn't as surprising to me, Mark. I had said, and I believe you said this at the time when he was hired, and I called it. I said by year number 3, I thought Urban could win a national title here. I thought for 2 reasons. I thought it would take 3 recruiting classes, and I was banking on Braxton Miller, interesting enough, to have a big year his senior year. And I thought if you coupled 3 recruiting classes with a senior, Braxton Miller, that team would be ready to win a national title. And I knew when we hired him, I said that's the only man I thought that could build a roster that could beat Saban. And I was proven right. And it would have been interesting if they would have had another opportunity in 15 with a roster I still think might be the most talented we've seen at Ohio State, one of the most talented in college football. But, you look at the last 10 years, Mark, I think there's been a few missed opportunities. 19 was a great team. I don't know if they could have beaten LSU on a neutral field. They would have kept it more competitive than Clemson, I think. Played them a little bit better, a little bit closer, but I don't think they win that night. That was maybe the best passing game in the history of college football. We got together 2 years ago after we had to swallow a very bitter pill on this field against Georgia. I think it was very fitting that Fielding made a field goal, by the way, Mark, to put this game away. And wouldn't you know, 2 years ago, what happened on that field?
He snuck a couple of those inside the right upright there.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I would be remiss if I wouldn't say kudos to Notre Dame. They showed a lot of fight tonight. Riley Leonard played great. We couldn't cover Greathouse, by the way. I still don't know if we could cover Greathouse. He was cooking us there, on those couple of drives. And I didn't see that. I was looking at it early in the game. Like maybe we should just stack the box and dare them to complete some passes. Because you're right, their offensive line and run game dominated that first drive. And I'm thinking, and Leonard was off early, and I'm thinking, okay, let's just stack the box, force him to make some throws, because I think we can cover these receivers on the outside. And, sure enough, that third quarter he got cooking. By the way, I'm right, Mark. Igbinosun commits at least 2 penalties every game, by the way. You can set your watch to it. The third 19, by the way, was a bad sign. If there was like an omen, it was when he completed that, because they had him like backed up. That third 19, it was like, they were in great shape there.
And Leonard had to throw it off his back foot. He was being rushed, and he's kind of rolling to his left, but there was somebody right on him, and he just had to chuck it out there. It was a well thrown ball. It was on time, but Igbinosun would just play the football. He is one of the few starting cornerbacks in Ohio State since Urban Meyer took over, and maybe even preceding that I'm thinking, why would he even get invited to an NFL camp?
Yeah.
He is not a good player. I'm sorry. It's terrible.
Yeah, I'm surprised more teams didn't mark him. There's the Zach has a quote on his show. They either call him the fish. I could call him the mark. That they call in the secondary, the guy that you usually go at. But yeah, I did quite. I think the Igbuka fumble though was a huge play, Mark. That was the thing that really kind of kept Notre Dame in it. To be fair, because I do think Ohio State would have at least kicked a field goal there and gone up 34-15, and I think Ohio State fans wouldn't have had to sweat the last 3 to 4 minutes in that possession.
34-15 or 38-15, and
right.
Probably taking another minute to 90 seconds, maybe more off the clock.
Yes. Yeah, that was huge. It was so close. I'm thinking he's got to be down, but defender made a great play. Yeah, there's where you give credit to Notre Dame for their defender making a nice play. And yeah, I thought it was debatable that Marcus kicked that field goal. By the way, good call on that fake punt. Notre Dame had a great call on that fake punt at 28-7. The guy should have just caught the pass. He just dropped the pass.
Wasn't the greatest pass in the world, but he should have caught the pass.
Yeah. Thought the field goal was debatable. I mean, when he, and then, we had another chance to put him away and, just couldn't get first downs, and yeah, Riley Leonard threw the ball a lot better, and even into some tight windows, they're better than I thought.
And if you watched the replay on a lot of those throws, he impressed me of how many times he had an Ohio State inside rusher right in his face, right in his grill, and he was delivering some nice throws. Yeah,
I thought our pass rush was going to be a little bit more dominant than it was, especially with the injuries to their offensive line and the way our D-line was playing, like we've talked about these last few games.
Agreed.
And especially I thought once we got them into a pass mode, I thought we would do some eating there and start to get the sacks and everything. But Will Howard, what can you say, Mark? I mean, it's just he missed a couple. The Tate play would have been nice after the on the punt. The Tate play would have been nice. And by the way, Jaden Fielding. Let's give some credit to Jaden Fielding for making a couple of clutch kicks tonight. After having the worst game in the Team Up North game you could have for a kicker, by the way, and making a couple of clutch field goals tonight. So kudos to him. I feel really good for this team and I think that people have, said things about Ohio State's culture in the past, that these players would come back and commit to this season, I think says everything you need to know about the culture. And maybe that's why, Mark, I'm tough on Ryan Day, and a lot of Ohio State fans are. I mean, it's a tough job, but I got to say this about him, Mark. Urban told him at the press conference what it was. If you go back to that press conference in early 2019, what did he tell him? What did he tell him you have to accomplish here? I mean, he kind of went down the list with him, Mark, at that press conference. And I always said it was tough for him because, in my opinion, he's following two of the three greatest coaches in the history of the school.
Sure.
So that was always going to be tough acts to follow. But maybe it's because that game means so much to me, Mark, and it means so much to a lot of the people of this state. You know better than I do.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people now, it's interesting, Mark. Have you heard the discussion, and where are you at in the discussion about it being diminished, by the way, with the 12-team playoff?
It's diminished. This is my thought, David.
Yeah.
At any point in my life, from the time I saw Bo Schembechler carried off the field in 1976 and saw 22-0 on the screen and had very little football knowledge as a 7-year-old.
Right.
But and I did not grow up in a football family. I did not grow up in a sports family. I don't know where this came from, but I hated that man.
Sure.
Hated that man on the screen and was so enraged and furious.
Right.
And then that carried through to where absolutely, like, they lost in 1988, as you well know, as a 4-5-1 football team. But that was like devastating. It didn't matter what the records were. That was the most important game. And I would have told you at any time in my life, beating Michigan was more important than winning a national championship.
Yeah.
Since they started playing a playoff.
Yeah.
I don't know about during the BCS era because we weren't faced with that situation.
Right.
But once they got to a playoff, it's not like I made a conscious decision to say, you know what? I'm logically thinking this through. Everybody thinks I'm logical and rational about all these things, and that's great because that's my approach. But I didn't make a logical decision that, okay, the Michigan game means less than a national championship now. No, it just happened. I just feel that way. Yeah, it was, I hated watching that game this year, but it was over and it was like, well, they've got to pull it together and go win a national championship. And once they started on this roll against Tennessee, it was like, that's gone. we've been watching playoff football now for a month.
Yeah.
This is the NFL.
Right. Well, but does this go to the point of? I mean, you're a traditionalist. I'm a bit of, those of us that have watched this game for as long as you and me have watched this game, Mark. What is the one things that we say about college that we love that separate it from the NFL?
Well, the first thing was in watching the NFL, you would see the players announced and the school attachment to the players.
Right.
And it was one school. And there was never like a Hall of Fame enshrinement where, so-and-so chose, they had to choose which team that they would be identified with. No, it was just simply all those players only played with one school. And it was the rare exception that you would ever think, okay, well, that guy, he actually played at two schools.
Yeah.
And now we're never going to see that again.
No. I mean, it has in many ways become the NFL Junior. I'm not going to say you're going to have to rename your show to Mark Rogers, voice of NFL Junior. That'd be a little bit too much work, probably, right?
Yeah, we don't want to change all the graphics.
You got too much invest. No, but you know where I'm going with all this. We're in a different world, and I mean, the game is, and he still has to get it right. I mean, listen, he still has to get it right. We can't just say, because they're not going to stop giving away gold pants, Mark. They're never going to take down that clock at the Woody Hayes facility, and everybody knows that. It's still going to be the highest rated college football game every year, which it usually is in most years, as far as regular season games, for sure. So,
not for sure. It wasn't this year. I think somebody edged it out, like Georgia, Texas. But anyway, I get your point.
In most years, it is. Yes. Yeah.
And you may not want to hear this, but speaking to Michigan fans, I totally get the other side of this. And I'm not diminished. I am diminishing this game because that's how I feel about it. And I think that's how the logistics of the sport, where it has taken it.
Yeah.
But we're still in a situation where this game means a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe not what it meant 10 years ago, but it means a lot. And if the shoe was on the other foot, I still understand the ridicule and the mockery and we won 4 in a row and your coach hasn't, but they always forget in 2019 Ryan Day did beat Michigan. So he has beaten Michigan.
Right. Well, they also
in that game, of course.
They also refused to play football in 2020. If we have a normal year, I still believe, COVID might have saved a coach's job that year. I will go down saying that you were on a certain podcast for a certain podcaster up there who I will not name. By the way, I hope to make his acquaintance in the off season. If we can maybe do sometime, I would be more than happy to make his acquaintance. In any case, I don't know if you can make that happen, Mark, but we'll see. Time will tell. But I will say this. He was already looking for new football coaches at the time, by the way.
Sure.
He was. Yeah. Those were the facts. They're undisputable. What's also as undisputable, Mark, is that Ohio State is the 2024 national champions. And, I've never been happier for these players. They all came back for this. I'm happy for Ryan Day. I'm happy for his staff because they deserve it. Mark, by the way, I've seen the graphic. Is this the 7th or the 9th national title for Ohio State?
In my book? Well, we're going to figure that out during the off season.
Is that off season fodder, by the way?
Everybody has more national championships than what they're given credit for, but that's for another night. I saw an ESPN listing in an article where they were grouping national championships by conference. This was just in the last day or two. Maybe I'll be able to find the article. They had Michigan credited with 10 and Ohio State with 8.
Well, yeah, they claim a lot before running water, Mark.
Absolutely.
I mean, they were winning stuff before indoor plumbing, and that's their name to fame.
7,
right?
When Ohio State won its first, but it was 10-8 then. That's according to ESPN's article, and I don't know where they were pulling these from, but it is now 10-9 based on those. So Ohio State does have a 9th national championship. I guess those are AP. But even before that, the AP started in 1936. And
in the modern era, we've been clearly the better program. It's not even close.
Yeah, it's not
That's not even debatable.
It's not debatable. And
No.
and I know that might be easy for me to say, and people don't think it's backed up. They just think it comes from fandom. No, we are going to have a live stream this off season, and I will break it down for everyone. And there will be much rejoicing on one side, and there will be much ridicule and angst on the other side, but it's not close.
No,
it's not.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, I think that, well, first of all, I think your largest fan base became your largest fan base and discovered they liked football 4 years ago, by the way, because in 2019, that wouldn't have been your largest fan base, but, I digress. I will say this. I like the future direction of this program, by the way. I think Day has them well positioned for the future too. With where the recruiting is at, where the NIL is at. I think they're going to have two good young quarterbacks coming in the next couple years that are could be really good. Julian Sane, by the way, Mark, could be their starting quarterback next year. Was the 5-star recruit that came in from Alabama. Going to be really interesting to watch the spring game and see what he looks like. I've kind of teased. I think he needs to get on the 4,000 calorie diet. He's a little bit real thin, but it always helps. Though he'll have the best receivers in college football again next year. Jeremiah Smith is going to be back. Tate's going to be back. Innes is going to be back. I'm interested to see what James Peoples going to do. By the way, that's going to be the running back next year. And I think we'll have some good players back on defense. So. Just final thoughts. What are your thoughts on the 12-team playoff overall, Mark? Maybe going forward, and which you think it's done, positive or whatever for college football.
They won the national championship, so it was a success, a rousing success. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, it is. I'm blaming you for not getting out that Schleister. Michael's right. I figured of all nights you would wear the Schleister jersey tonight. By the way.
I don't know if you heard me. I didn't even turn the game on until like 9 o'clock.
Oh man, Mark. I mean, come on. Well, were you busy? I didn't want to. If you were busy doing something.
Other things were monopolizing my time, but also I hate sitting through an entire, I can squeeze down the game, and I caught it by not long after halftime. Anyway, I digress. Where were we? 12-team playoff.
Yeah.
What? For anyone who criticizes the playoff, I don't see where, from a competition standpoint, it was that awful. Yes, there are going to be blowouts when there's 11 games played, but there were not like epic blowouts. Penn State beating SMU was the biggest blowout we had. The other blowouts were competitive blowouts, if there is such a thing. They were reasonable separation between the two teams.
Right. Well, this is kind of a blowout sport. Let's be honest, Mark. That's the one difference, with the NFL in college. If you look at however the many last championship games in college football, we've had it even back to the BCS era. We had blowouts. Not every game's 05 Texas versus USC. The ones like that only come around so often, or Miami, Ohio State, of course. So. Yeah, it's that way. You're going to get mismatches, and you have two conferences that are clearly ahead of everybody else in college football, and one conference right now that may be the best in college football. Mark,
it has the best at the best, highest level. Yes.
That's more off-season discussion right here on Mark Rogers TV, voice of college football, right? You got the legal pads? Are we rocking and rolling here?
I have gone through every game this season. I'm ready to release my conference rankings. They are here and ready to go. I've sized it all up.
Let's do it.
So we will get there.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to a great off season. I'm going to go get an Ohio State National Championship shirt and celebrate. For the men from Columbus as they take home yet another national title to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. So
very good, David.
Let's go Buckeyes. Have a great night, Mark.
Thanks for the call.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. We've got another fine contribution coming in from our buddy Kyle. Kyle, thank you so much for that. Mark, which team will be the first 15-win team in a season team? So if you're not knowledgeable on this, Kyle, we've already seen 15-win teams, if that's what you're asking me. Michigan 2023, 15-0. Georgia 2022. Yes, 15-0. LSU 2019, 15-0. Clemson, I believe, was the first. 2018, 15-0. Correct? Because they played a conference championship game, which was game number 13. Then they played 2 CFP games. And none of the first few champions in the playoff era finished 15-0. They all went 14-1. Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Alabama, and then it was Clemson in 2018. So you got Clemson, LSU, Georgia, Michigan. I hope that answered your question, if I interpreted that correctly. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We got Michigan Man on the line.
Hey, man, let me just say congrats, man.
Thank you.
That game went, well, I can't say it went how. So my prediction was 35-10 Ohio State. I thought they were clearly the better team. Unlike the Texas game, I thought they were clearly the better team tonight. All around. I think out of the 4 playoff games, I know, the Oregon first half was pretty bad, but I felt like the wide receivers for Ohio State were ridiculously wide open, especially in that first half. I mean, it seemed like they were not DBs within 10 yards a lot of times. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch. I don't recall it being that ridiculous, but you might be right.
Well, it was mainly the first half. They showed a chart, right? I think it was when he went 12 for 12.
Yeah.
A lot of it was like 10 yards and lower, and then between, I think it was like a couple 15-yard passes. And I think a lot of it was what Notre Dame was trying to do is, they've been a predominantly man coverage team all year, and they tried to mix in some zones.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure you're aware of this. A lot of times when a team tries to mix in zones when they're not familiar with doing zone, they can really mess it up.
Sure.
And be very loose in coverage. And I think that's part of it, what was going on with that. But yeah, man, I mean, look, great season for them, great playoff run. I thought Riley Leonard played really well in that second half.
Mm-hmm.
I thought in the first half he had some. His throws were pretty bad in that first half, in my opinion. I don't know what you were thinking about that. He had some ducks in there, but
I don't think he absolutely had some ducks. Now, they just were, after that first drive in which he didn't even throw the ball more than maybe 3 times at the most. Something in that range. Anyway, he didn't throw the ball that much in the first half because everything else was 3 and out after that, pretty much.
Yeah, they only had they only had a couple drives in that first half. That's the thing, though. I mean, like, they try to do the, hold on to the ball strategy, but that only works if your defense gets stops. If your defense isn't going to get a stop, and what was it? The first 5 drives were touchdowns for Ohio State in a row.
The first 4.
First 4 were touchdowns in a row. And one thing I noticed, specifically was I thought Ohio State was just much better in the trenches overall. I thought it was a bad matchup. You had an ND team who likes to run man coverage, and to me, that's the worst coverage you can run against an Ohio State team. I just don't. I think we've seen it time and time again. It just doesn't work. And then you have an offense, which they clicked in the second half, but they're a run team, and Ohio State has the best run defense in the country. And they can't really rely on the pass. So I just thought it was a terrible matchup. Did you thought it was a terrible matchup going in too, right?
Well, I want to address a couple things that you brought up, and I'm right on board with you. But my counterpunch was just basically, I was just making the point that when you said Leonard wasn't throwing the ball well in the first half, that after that 19-play drive or 18-play drive for the touchdown, they only had 2 possessions and went 3 and out. And then they just took a knee on the final play. So basically, they only ran 6 more plays the entire half after that. So that's what I meant by, yeah, he threw some ducks. Like I can remember a pass that he should have had out in the flat to the tight end crossing. He had him open and he threw like what you would expect like a 4th grader to throw. Like I don't think his arm was hit. He just hurried it and it looked awful. Yeah, he had a couple of those, but they only ran 6 plays after the first drive.
You know what? Yeah, you know what's interesting about that? I think Ohio State, when they realized that they could move the ball pretty easily, it's almost like they took Notre Dame's game plan and said, "Oh, you want to play slow? We'll play slow too, but we're going to score on every drive." You know what I'm saying? We'll march down the field, get into third down situations. We'll just convert them and just score. We'll play your game. We'll just play the game better.
Now, a certain extent, they had to do that against Texas, but for different reasons. Texas took away Jeremiah Smith and played, everything in front of them and forced everything underneath.
Yeah, I thought Texas played really good defense in that game for the most part. I thought the strategy was better. I just knew Notre Dame's strategy wasn't going to work. And I want to make a comment about, they beat the record number of top 10 teams this year, right?
I guess so. That's what I'm being told. I don't know that.
Well, I believe they did, but I think it's important. Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to note though that's teams are going to have to do that going forward now. That's gonna happen now because you have to do it.
We're seeing something unprecedented right now, but it's going to continue to be done just because whoever wins it is going to have to go through a gauntlet. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's one thing. And by the way, the only way Ryan Day leaves now is if he chooses to. And there's no, you know what I'm saying? Once you win a national championship, especially as good as he's been there, he could be there for life. And the only way he's not there for the rest of his life is if he chooses to go to the NFL or something. Which I don't even know if he's got. Does he have any interest in the NFL? Do you know?
Does he have any offers?
Has he ever expressed interest?
Oh,
in the NFL.
Well, he's been there, and I think just based on the way he's conducted the program and the passing attack and so forth, he's just been kind of stylized as an NFL type coach. But I've never heard that out of him.
Yeah. So would you agree then that the only way do you think he could be a lifer?
I think he could be a lifer, but I think we're just going to see far and far fewer lifers in college football than we did in previous generations. Number one. Number two, I understand what you're saying about that he pretty much sealed his legacy at Ohio State. However, I think it's a little different there and maybe a few other places. If it's 6 years from now, and he hasn't gotten close to a national championship, and he's got a losing record against Michigan, people are going to forget this national championship.
I don't know if I agree with that, Mark. I guess I can't bring because Urban Meyer was 7-0 against Michigan, so I guess I can't bring that up. But I think Urban Meyer after 2014, even though he beat Michigan, I think he underperformed. I don't know if you agree with that. In terms of, national championships.
Underperformed, but yeah, he didn't deliver another national championship, but he delivered a top 5 team every year.
That I think we're capable. I think all those teams were capable of winning it, though.
Well, a couple of times he wasn't given the opportunity to win it all, meaning the playoff committee could have selected them in 2017, could have selected them in 2018. They just left them out.
Yeah, and I still stand on this. By the way, I know they just won the Natty. I still don't think this is a top 3 Ryan Day team. I know that's going to sound crazy to people. I know it's going to sound crazy. I just think that they were the best team this year, and they played the best in the play. And that's the thing about this 12-team playoff. You know what I'm saying? You could catch lightning in a bottle in a 12-team playoff and win the whole thing. And I think that's what they did. I still think 2019 was a better team. 2020, I still think was a better team, and I say 2022 was a better team. That's just my opinion with it. But
okay, I only would say that possibly 2019 was a better team. Those other two teams defensively don't compare to this team.
Well, yeah, this team had the best defense out of 2019's close, but definitely had the best defense. There's no question about that.
And I don't think
I just think overall they
in 2020 and 22 were so incredibly better than this offense to offset that. I think this team is better than 2020 and 22.
I guess we're gonna have to agree to disagree. I just think in 2020, I thought, and this is my opinion of it. I think in 2020 they just faced an Alabama team that I think there was no team like Alabama they had to play this year. That's the only reason. I think they probably win. I think that team wins the championship in a similar field. I think 2022 probably wins the championship in a similar field. But at the end of the day, look, Ryan Day is going to be. He's going to be there for life. I disagree with I don't think you forget national championships, Mark. Maybe you're coming from a different Ohio State perspective. I just don't think you forget national championships. Do you think Ohio State fans forget 2002 or 2000? I think they'll stay with you for life.
Of course, they don't physically, cognitively forget it, but I think they get to a place where, okay, that was great then, but for the last 5 years, you're 1-4 against Michigan. You've only been losing first and second round playoff games. Not good enough. Suddenly not good enough again. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll give you that. So who's leaving off this? Do you have the list of players that are leaving off this team?
There's a ton of them. They're only supposed to have about 7 starters back total. Both sides.
Okay, so and this is you're probably not trying to get into offseason stuff. Who would you say is the preseason favorite right now in terms of national championship? You probably have no prediction on that.
I really don't, because again, I got to go through the portal's pretty much shown us what's going to happen there. There's still going to be some activity in the portal after spring, but I don't think it's going to be. It could be significant. I saw somebody release. I don't know that it was anybody credible, but I've seen a few way too early top 25s, and I'll release my own that had Ohio State and Texas. They were the ones that were at number 1, but Ohio State's going to be awfully inexperienced. Texas is the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, so this is I'm trying to remember another year like this. This is probably the first offseason I'm going into it where I feel like there's really no where you look at a team like, teams are going to have to be really good to beat this team. I can't think of that team going into this next season right now.
I think the presence of Arch Manning's going to have a lot of people on the Texas bandwagon.
Well, who do they got coming back?
Again, boy, I would really have to. I can't tell you out of their best defenders, which they might have had the best defense in the country, who's coming back. I don't know off the top of my head.
Mark, who's that commentator that made that ridiculous comment that Will Howard was the worst QB left in the playoffs?
Wasn't that Malik Zaire, the old Notre Dame quarterback?
Was that who that was?
Yeah, I just saw that posted tonight.
Yeah, that might have been the most ridiculous comment I heard, because I mean, like, it gets ridiculous, man. It gets sometimes, but look, man, congrats to your team. I know you mentioned. By the way, when was that people didn't know you were an Ohio State fan? When was that?
Oh, if I had a staff, there's a lot of stuff I would like to look up. I'd like to look up all the times that I said during 2020 that Michigan needed to hang on to Jim Harbaugh and I had to fight people on that. And I was fighting people, obviously, a number of times on Ryan Day. And yes, people did not know I was an Ohio State fan, and I should have never opened my mouth. Now,
How did that get revealed?
I said it at some point. I just, enough people asked me that I just came out with it.
Okay, that makes sense. I will say, man, this championship has shown you how fickle fans are. They went from we don't ever want to see Ryan Day step foot in Columbus again.
Yes.
No, and this is knowing, by the way, that they had a great chance to win a national title still. It's not like they were out of the playoffs and they didn't have a great shot. You know what I'm saying?
And people wonder why these athletes and these coaches aren't always real receptive to crowds and so forth, because they know that you truly aren't in their corner thick and thin.
Yeah, I look back at it now and it's like, it's kind of ridiculous because they still were going to be in the playoffs and have a great chance to win a title. It's almost like a large swath of fans were like thinking, oh, we lost this game. And that's all. It was like tunnel vision. It's kind of interesting to see how fans can be sometimes.
Well, you're a Michigan man. You know how seriously Ohio State fans take that game.
No, that's true. And I thought you brought up a great point earlier with David. And I've been saying this too. The game 100% doesn't mean as much as it did. And there's several factors go into that. One, the chances are you're going to play each other multiple times if they're both good.
Yeah.
So just playing the one game at the end of the season doesn't mean as much when you're like, wait a minute, even if I lose this game, I still probably going to have another shot at this team. That's without even talking about the playoff. You know what I'm saying? That's just on that fact alone. Just on the Big Ten getting rid of divisions. Let's say they didn't even expand the playoff. Just them getting rid of divisions and making it so Michigan and Ohio State could literally see each other the next week. Got rid of that. Just that alone. It could have still been a 14 playoff. I think just that alone did that.
Yeah, we're going to see that at some point. I'd be surprised if we don't see it in the next 5 years, where we're going to be looking at the two top teams in the Big Ten, and it's going to be a scenario where either they've got the two spots locked up and they're just going to be playing the next week anyway, and that's going to be a very strange scenario, or it's going to be a situation where like one of them's got it locked up, but if the other one wins, they'll have to replay it. And it's like, well, yeah, it's going to be an NFL type situation where
and I'm not trying to gas up Ohio State fans. I'm not a fan of y'all. No offense. I'm a fan of you, Mark, of course. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt. I had to put a caveat in there, But the Ohio State fans need to think about this. Ryan Day may be 0-4 right now, right? But in this new situation, let's say he played Michigan. Or 1-4, my bad. 1-4, you're right.
Keep going, not to interrupt. My bad. Go.
Let's just say next season they play each other 3 times and Ryan Day beats them 3 times in one season. Right?
Sure.
Isn't he 4-4 like in 1 year now?
Yeah. How are you throwing gas at the Ohio State fans for that?
As in good gas, like hopium.
Okay. I gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
I'm on that one.
So I'll say this before this last thing I'll say. Michigan did win the last game of consequence. I'll end it on that.
Yeah.
Right?
They did. And hang on just a second, because I will say it. The only thing I'm nitpicking about when you throw out that 0-4, that either you have to just say Michigan's won 4 straight, or if you're going to cite his record, it is 1-4. So.
Well, no, you're right. I forgot for some reason. This might be a Michigan fan thing. We for some reason we don't even think about the 2019 game, and that's probably because of the result of the game. But congrats on your title, man. I'm surprised it took this long, to be honest with you. I'm surprised it took 10 years, but at the end of the day, you got it. It was a good playoff run. And I'm excited. I'm already on the next season. I can't wait to see the Michigan spring game.
Yeah.
I'm excited to get this 5-star offensive tackle. So we'll have 2 5-star offensive tackles to go along with Bryce Underwood. I'm very excited. And I think this just makes the rivalry that much better. Even though the game don't mean as much, I think Ryan Day winning this natty might give him some extra confidence. I think we can make this a rivalry again, you know? All right, man. Have a good day.
Thanks, Michigan man. Appreciate you. It's our guy, Michigan man. See? Friendly rival there. Still sticks it to me and I to him, but he always brings some good points. Absolutely. All right, let's clarify what we got here with Kyle. So Kyle is asking, thank you for the contribution, Kyle. Sorry, I meant an undefeated team in this playoff series. Oh, so your initial question was, Mark, which team will be the first 15? Okay. So you're talking about that team's going to go 16-0 because, of course, they're going to go 12-0 in the regular season, win the conference championship game to go 13-0. Then they will have 3 playoff games to play. They will go 16-0. Who's going to be the first team to do that? Well, that's going to be a mighty heavy lift is what it's going to be. So don't be holding your breath for that to happen anytime soon. But you would think teams did go 15-0. However, again, they only had 2 playoff games instead of the 3. It's exponentially more difficult. Why wouldn't I say Ohio State's going to do it? Why wouldn't they be the first? I don't know. I'll give you this group of teams. Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Texas, and Georgia. And you can take the field. How about that? And we also have Tukey. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the contribution. Tukey, go Bucks. Great coverage as always, Mark. Well, thank you for that. Thank you so much for the kind remarks, folks. Always appreciate it. Minnesota Dave.
How's it going, Mark? Congratulations.
Thank you.
I watched a full half of that game, and I pretty much knew that Ohio State was going to win. I was kind of disappointed. I was cheering for Notre Dame. So,
well, it did get a bit tight at the end.
I didn't see it. Guess what movie I ended up watching after that?
Rudy. I don't know.
Yeah,
you did?
exactly.
I didn't think it was going to be that easy, but I guess you were laying it out there for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I think Notre Dame getting to the championship definitely helps Notre Dame get probably more players. They get to keep that money, which is a big thing because Ohio State winning, well, they have to share that with teams like Minnesota and Iowa and the rest of the Big Ten.
Yes.
And that's going to help them big time. I think in 2 years, Notre Dame will win a national championship, maybe next year, but most likely I feel 2 years. I don't think they're quite there yet.
Well, that's a bold statement in a sense because the field's against them. But I think that Marcus Freeman's doing an outstanding job. I think that's pretty obvious. It's not any kind of hot take on my part. I'm just calling it as is very obvious to everyone that he's doing a great job. He has obviously instilled something in this program and in this team that Brian Kelly could not for as good a job as he did. And also in the recruiting, I think Marcus Freeman is going to try to certainly amp up the areas in which this team faltered, which would be lack of explosive playmakers on the outside and maybe a quarterback who is, on the higher end coming out of high school. Yeah. More of a prototypical NFL type of thrower.
Now, I have a question for you. From what I remember, does the ACC, I think the ACC picks the teams that they want Notre Dame to play, or does Notre Dame pick the teams?
Well, it's a rotational basis. It's on a rotational basis.
Do you think that should kind of stop? Because if I'm Notre Dame, I wouldn't want to play like Wake Forest or Duke or
pretty much almost fulfill their their contract.
Yeah.
Let's see how far that goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing because if I'm Notre Dame, I would say I only want to play 4 now, and we can play. We want to constantly play Miami because we have a bigger rivalry with Miami of all of them. Florida State can be switched over with Clemson and Florida State depending on how good. I mean, we don't. I think Florida State having a bad year was a fluke. I think they're going to be good again eventually.
Oh,
You know,
eventually, but I
I don't
don't
know
know if
how
it was a
long,
fluke.
but
I
it'll be
don't
a
think
lot.
they're going to be a really good team next year.
You don't think there'll be a good team next year? You think it's going
I
to be a
think they'll be
while?
marginal at best. Now, listen to this. Notre Dame's agreement with the ACC only runs through 2025.
Mm,
So there's only one more season. And I'm reading a lot of articles from 2021. That must be when they extended it.
okay.
So I don't know what they're planning on doing.
If I'm Notre Dame, this is what I would do. I would say to the ACC, we would like to play certain teams, and if not, we're out of here. We're going back to over to the Big East for our other sports because it's going to help the other sports a lot better if they go to the Big East. Travel cost
Sure.
and don't have to go from coast to coast. So
I don't even know who's in the Big East anymore. What, Villanova, UConn?
it's Villanova, UConn, Georgetown, Xavier,
Okay.
uh, um, God, it's basically all the Catholic schools in UConn. All the
DePaul?
big DePaul, yep, DePaul's in.
St. Joseph's? Are they in
No,
there? Okay.
no, St.
They're
Joseph's is in the
they're
Atlantic 10.
still with Temple. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
I haven't watched college basketball in a long time. Yeah, that's going to be intriguing because, yeah, I don't know how happy Notre Dame is with the rest of the sports situation. I got to think that their women's and men's basketball programs are in a great place in the ACC, but this football
Women's is,
contract.
men's is not. Men's
Well,
has
I,
been
I mean
suffering.
that their programs may not be doing well, but they're in a good place being in the ACC.
Mm. I don't know totally about that. I don't know how much a difference it is for them to be in the ACC compared to the Big East. I would have to actually. That's probably a good question for Will and D.
If I was Notre Dame, I would back off. I would test the ACC in terms of negotiating down the number of games that we would have to play in football while staying in the ACC in the other
Mm-hmm.
sports.
I could see that. I could see that. I mean, like I said, I would just hold the Big East more as a threat and
Yeah,
say
they're
we can
playing
leave.
5 games against the ACC, and most of them are horrific.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're sometimes not even playing their bigger rivals in the ACC. They're not playing. They're not playing Pitt. They're not playing Boston College. They're
That's
not
because it's
playing.
completely rotational. They're playing everyone the same number of times.
Yeah, and I don't. That's the reason why I wouldn't really like that. Because if I'm a Notre Dame fan, and I'm kind of am, I do. They're kind of like my second team, outside of Minnesota, and it's a
I didn't know
distant
that.
second. Yeah,
And
it's
you
like a
only watched
distant.
them play one half tonight?
I just knew. I
And
just
then you
knew.
watched
It was
Rudy.
just. Yeah,
The game
yeah.
got to 31-23. The game got to one score with about 4 minutes left.
I didn't even know that, but it started looking like 2012 uh, Alabama all over again for a while
Oh,
there.
no, it didn't get to that. I know that there were some people that predicted that, and I saw some. Well, it got to 31-7, and then Ohio State had a big fumble,
Oh,
and Notre Dame took it from there.
okay, so they were able to get some turnovers eventually because that's what I
Well, they
felt
got
was the only way
one.
that Notre Dame was going to win was they got big turnovers.
Yeah, they got one that Ohio State had driven it down to the 20-yard line, and Notre Dame got a fumble on a really good play by their linebacker making a strip on the ball carrier, and they got back in the ball game.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
They
All
kind
right.
of got on the fringe of being back in the ball. They were still down 8 points and didn't have the ball. So there was a lot of work to be done. And then
Yeah.
Ohio State, I don't know if you heard any of this, but there was just about 2 minutes left on the clock. And Ohio State had like a 3rd and 11. So Notre Dame would have gotten the ball back down 8 with plenty of time to drive down the field. And Ohio State hit a 56-yard pass that sealed the
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
down to like the 5-yard line.
That's just because Ohio State was just like their wide receivers are just really good. It's hard to
Well,
cover
that's
them
what they did.
man to man. It's hard to cover them man to man. I felt that then maybe they would try to play a little zone. They did here and
They
there, but
did.
they didn't do.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it as well as they should have, as they thought they did, because they tore apart their zone on a couple plays. There was that I think the touchdown at the half with the wide open tight end that scored it for Ohio State at the end of the half. I just basically decided to turn it off. That was, I think, a zone defense.
Yes, it was, because you could see the two linebackers were kind of caught in no man's land, and Will Howard kind of pressed the line of scrimmage. He rolled out and he kind of acted like he was going to take off and run for it, and they got caught in no man's land, and then he just boop right over them.
Well, I guess I get to be a little bit more excited about the offseason for my Gophers and get back into that type of thing and start paying attention to other sports and for a while. But I'll be
Okay, well,
calling in here and there for the offseason, see what's going on.
all
Catch
right,
the
we'll
show
be
a
here
little bit
talking
later.
college football every day. We'll
All right.
track your Gophers for you,
All
Dave,
right.
and you can be proud that the Big Ten won the national championship.
I am.
Okay.
All right, Mark. Have a nice
Thanks,
day.
man.
Dave.
Have a good night.
Hey, bye-bye.
Did Dave not think I knew his name? I said, thanks, man. All right. All right. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We got Buckeye Mike.
What's up, Mark?
Gotta be a happy guy.
My God. Oh, 9 freaking time champs. 3 times since I've been born. I got some things to get off my chest.
Okay. Go right to it.
1, this title means everything.
Okay.
This title, yeah, Ryan Day didn't have to win the title to keep his job, whatever. He needed it for his legacy, so one way or another, he needed to win the title because Tressel won a title, Urban won a title. Second of all, to mostly not our Michigan fans, to the Michigan fans, I'm sorry, but get over yourself. Deal with it. We're in a new era of college football where we don't have to, yeah, we want to beat y'all. We do. We still do for pride. We don't have to beat y'all like we used to win the whole thing. Again, like, what's his name? He always has the headphones on when he calls in. Said that 2017 Alabama lost to Auburn, didn't make the SEC title game, squeaked into the playoff, and won the whole thing. It's doable. It's always been doable since the 4 team. It's doable. Get over it.
Okay. I understand your point, Buckeye Mike. I don't know if you were listening. I made the comment to somebody who was asking me if the Michigan game means as much as it used to, and absolutely not. It does not. And if it does to some people, I'm not telling them that they shouldn't feel a certain way. You can feel however you want, but it logistically, practically does not mean as much. And to me personally, it just, like I explained to another caller, I didn't make a decision to say, going forward, the Michigan game will not mean as much to me as it used to mean. No, it just naturally happened. This is just how I feel. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
It used to mean the world to me, everything. But it just doesn't. It still means a lot. But I have no issue with anybody who says that it does. Now, ironically, I think that those people who say it does those are on years in which they won the game. And then the years that they didn't, they will say that it doesn't.
Right.
And I certainly have no issue with any Michigan fan who says, "Hey, you won the national championship, but we beat you," because they did.
Right. And I don't either. My nitpick is when they want to say, well, your title's fraudulent because you didn't beat us.
Well,
You
that's
need
stupid.
to beat the champs to be the champs, and you don't have to do that anymore. And guess what? If we really want to go there, if we really want to go there, well, guess what? Michigan's title's fraudulent last year because they cheated for half the freaking games. So if we really want to go there, we could throw that around. So they need to be careful in the way that they talk, because we can nitpick all we want. Now, granted, I know you're probably going to say something like, well, it's whatever. And I agree. I am long past this whole cheating crap, because at the end of the day, the public's made their decision. Majority of the public has decided that they cheated, and that's fine, because guess what? They can still stand on, well, the NCAA didn't punish us. And you know what? That's true. But again, the NCAA is crap when it comes to making punishments and their stupid investigations. I mean, we still haven't gotten our rings back from Tattoo Gate. Are you kidding me?
Well, hang on here, Buckeye Mike. Number one, I don't know where you saw a definitive poll that polled the entire nation that said that most people think that Michigan are cheaters. I don't know where that poll
right. Yeah.
has been displayed. The NCAA has not announced its decision. This is still being investigated. So
right. My point was, and yes, I haven't seen a poll that says majority of the people I've talked to, and since it started, I've talked to a lot of people.
To talk to Ohio State fans.
Well, I talked to Michigan fans that say, yeah, we cheated. I talked to Ohio State fans. I talked to Notre Dame fans. I talked to a litany of different fan bases, just like you do. Not as much as you do, or often, but majority of the people I've talked to say they cheated. And yes, the investigation is still going on. But my point to that was, the public that we know of has already made up their mind, because the NCAA loves to drag their feet. It feels like that's what they're doing, is they're dragging their feet with this investigation. But you know what? That's for another day. My main point was that you want to go there and talk fraudulent titles, we can do that all day long. But this is a time to rejoice, a time to be happy. We have a winning coach. The dude's winning percentage is behind Newt Rockne and like one other coach. I mean, he's the third most winning percentage coach in the entirety of college football. And I've had my moments of being upset at Ryan Day, I admit, but that all has gone out the window. And anybody that's still mad at Ryan Day that's an Ohio State fan, what are you doing? The man, I can't beat Michigan, but guess what? I'll take losing to Michigan every freaking year if this is the end of this. If we lose to Michigan and we still make the playoffs and run the table and win the whole thing, I'll gladly lose to Michigan every year, because I'll tell you what, Michigan and winning the Big Ten is the goal, but the piece that a lot of crazy Michigan fans don't understand is the ultimate goal is the most important goal. And the other thing that irritates me is Michigan's the last true champion because Michigan's undefeated when they won the title. Okay, do you realize Nick Saban had 2 undefeated teams and he won like 7 titles with Bama?
Yes.
5, 7?
6 with
It's
Bama.
hard to go undefeated. Yeah. Undefeated is a bonus. Yeah, I'll give you that. Like, awesome. Y'all won it undefeated. Cool. But it does not downgrade a title any less, in my opinion, that we lost 2 games.
Well, the same people that seem to say and differentiate between championships, because Michigan and some other teams went undefeated, other teams had one loss, and now we're in a different era, and Ohio State's got 2 losses as a champion. Might be the same people that would say that Super Bowl championships are, nobody knows the record of Super Bowl champions. Few people do. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, because see, and that's the other thing that gets me. I don't care what fan base it is, but when they start to attack that, it's like that's where I go. It's okay. It was Super Bowl champs. We basically pulled a wild card team. We basically pulled the Chiefs last year, because the Chiefs last year were a wild card team and they won the whole thing. But the response I get is, "Well, that's the NFL. That's different." How's it different? Not different.
Well, this is the way college football is structured now. So this is the way it is. It's not a fraudulent championship. It is a championship that was won after the most difficult postseason run that anyone has ever had to play.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing, and I know this is kind of nitpicking. The only thing that I have to say with the way that it was laid out, why couldn't we get the Peach Bowl? Because the Peach Bowl is the only New Year's Six Bowl we have never won. We were supposed to do what Texas did this year. If we'd have gotten the Peach Bowl, it would have been us instead of Texas.
You understand,
But
Mike?
other than that,
it's not the playoff committee's responsibility to figure out where Ohio State needs to win a bowl game.
I know. Like I said, it's my only nitpick, because at the end of the day, I mean, we beat 5 top 5 teams this year. Nobody's ever done that, winning a title.
That's what I understand.
Hardest path. But all right, Mark. I think that's all I got for today. Go Bucks. We natty champs. Let's repeat, baby.
Thanks for the call, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Have a good one.
Buckeye Mike giving us a call here on the Voice of College Football. Do appreciate all of you. And let's get to the chat. There are no other calls. I do want to apologize because I often forget to put the call-in line in the description of the video. I did post it on X, and I also posted it 3 or 4 times, and I'm sure some of you great viewers have posted it in the chat as well. We've been on the line for about an hour and a half at this point. The Rod Favre, no, that's SEC football, who was asking, basically saying, Mark, why is Texas the favorites next year? Generally because they've recruited out of their minds. Steve Sarkisian has proven that he can win playoff games and that he's gotten past his issues of trying to elevate top programs into elite status. He's established that at Texas. Great recruiting. They'll make the moves that they need to in the transfer portal, already have this offseason. And lastly, Arch Manning looks like he's ready to take over. So we've released ACC Power Rankings, Big 12 Power Rankings. I'm working on SEC Power Rankings, Big 10 Power Rankings, also working on ranking the conferences. Okay. Big Ten fans, I know that you think it's a foregone conclusion that the Big Ten is the best conference, and you might be right. But we're going to do it by the numbers. We are going to go through all the conferences, and we are going to rank them based on the results on the field. So I have quite the system in which I go through and do that. So where in the world? Anyway, I don't know what notepad that's in right now. I don't even know why I'm looking at it because I got to produce the videos, but I got to admit that I was itchy to get started on that. So I went through all the results, and I already counted this afternoon as I was went through all the games that the SEC played. Big 12, Big 10, ACC, went through all their games, counted up, their results against the Power Five, the FCS, the Group of Five, listed all the wins, all the losses against the Power Five, seeded all the teams because we put that into a bit of a mathematical equation. And I have to admit that I kind of jumped the gun because I wanted to do the Big Ten, and I already counted Ohio State winning against Notre Dame. So I was a bit confident and just thought, you know what, they're going to win that game. So we're already going to count it. And what else? We're going to do a way too early top 25. So that kind of speaks to SEC football's question right there. But I'm going to do that with a little research. I'm not going to be throwing darts at the board and just saying, well, it's usually Ohio State and Georgia and Texas and Alabama and whoever, and so we'll just put them in line with Oregon and whoever else. No. Penn State's got Drew Aller back, of course, this season as well. No, we're actually going to look at the rosters, look at the teams, look who's coming back, who's been lost, and make a reasonable projection toward the top 25 that actually makes sense. Speaking of which, I got to work on that. That's going to be released on Tuesday. The top 25 that actually makes sense, final edition for 2024. And the only thing I can guarantee you is that Ohio State's going to be ranked number 1. Other than that, who knows? I got to analyze all these teams. So it's a resume ranking. So be looking out for the top 25 that actually makes sense to be released on Tuesday. What else? I'm going to go through this transfer portal. Going to go through everything, basically, and we're going to provide some kind of video series on the transfer portal, whether I'm going to go through some of the major teams across America and give you a look at who they gained and who they lost, or maybe we'll go by position. We'll rank the quarterbacks, the quarterback additions. I still have to rank the three coaches rankings we'll give you a hot seat list. We will give you the ranking of the best coaching hires this year. So, for example, last year I ranked Mike Elko number 1 to Texas A&M, if I recall correctly. But we'll do a coaches hiring rankings for this offseason. Then we've got, again, a hot seat list, and then I will just do my coaches rankings 1 through 70 of all the Power 5 coaches, college football. We deliver that. Then we got to do all-time rankings. Look at this. So we go through the all-time rankings that I have been meticulously keeping track of year by year. Where is that? So this is not going to show you really anything except all the work I put into this to track all-time rankings in all these categories: winning percentage, wins, major bowl wins, total bowl wins, consensus All-Americans, NFL draft selections, first round selections, conference championships, national championships, top 5 finishes, top 10 finishes, top 25 finishes, on and on and on and on. And then we give metrics and values to all those, and we will determine the all-time rankings for these college football programs. And we're going to go through all the national championship seasons and revisit all of those. So I know that you're mourning the end of college football, as I am. We're not going to get to watch college football until late August. I think August 23rd is the first game. Actually, the first game is in Dublin again, and it's a conference game. Iowa State and Kansas State are playing in Dublin on August 23rd. So we've got, let's see, today's the 20th. 3 days, it's going to be the 23rd. So we've got 7 months. We will fill up your 7 months of college football talk with all the things I just mentioned and more. So please be here for that. Cheryl, congratulations to you. The Rod Farva, congratulations to you as Buckeye fans. And as the Rod Farva is mentioning, here's another video idea. I should be listing these things out so I don't forget them, but I won't, because they'll pop into my head at some point in the next few weeks. We'll go through the best matchups of 2025, the best conference matchups, the best out of conference matchups, the best under the radar matchups. We'll do all that too. All right. And to cap us off tonight, possibly we get an appearance from the real MVP.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this evening?
I am doing just fine and dandy.
Well, congrats on winning the national championship, Mark. How do you feel?
How do I feel? Well, I feel good. I, of course, am here every day debating people and arguing, and I think I gain the most satisfaction out of this because I often state that this is arguably the best program in the history of college football, and that is one more talking point on my side.
Yes, ESPN, by the way, they're showing in the bottom. This is Ohio State's 7th national championship. I don't claim to know the 50s, 60s, the 40s, but that's just what ESPN is scrolling.
They should probably get together with themselves and figure things out, because they, as I stated, I don't know if you heard me say this, but they posted an article. I'm going to find it right now, just in the last 2 days, that said Ohio State had 8 national championships. Therefore, they would have 9.
Well, I don't know, Mark. I mean, this is an odd sport where we have more national champions than we actually do seasons. So who knows? It's hard to keep track of anyway. But Mark, Ohio State from the beginning of this year felt like it was built for this moment to win the national championship. Is this a second straight year of a team going all in to win the national championship? Do you think that's just going to be the new mantra going forward, of somebody just pushing all their chips in the middle and just winning it?
Yeah, because the sport is becoming more and more like professional sports. And we see that where general managers and organizations look for opportunities to maximize their resources and their talent pool in certain seasons, to look for the piece or 2 or 3 that they need to put them over the hump.
Right. I was with Always Irish's chat, and there's some people in that chat where there was a narrative forming that this Notre Dame team was like all the other Notre Dame teams because they ended up losing in the big moment. What do you think about that narrative, Mark?
I think it's a dumb one.
Why do you think that?
Well, those other Notre Dame teams made it through a regular season. So in 2018, 2020, of course, there was this ACC contract that Notre Dame has signed, and therefore they had a fairly weak schedule those 2 seasons. And then they went to a playoff game and they got their head beat in. And the same thing happened in 2012 before there was a playoff. This Notre Dame team had to face up against strong competition, against 2 teams that I would rank as 2 of the 5 or 6 best in the country, and win those games. They also did not get bludgeoned by this Ohio State team. They were clearly the inferior team on the field, but they were in the game during most of the first half. Then they got blown out. Then they made a comeback, and they made it interesting. So these efforts do not compare to losing 30-3 to Clemson in 2018, or losing 42-14, in which, if you watch that game, to say it was 42-14 is a joke. That score is so much closer than those 2 teams on the field. That game could have been 60-0. And then, of course, the most recent in 2020, they were losing to Alabama 31-7 in the 4th quarter. You know, this team acquitted itself far beyond those other teams.
I completely agree. And Mark, with Ohio State winning this game after the first round of the playoffs, the underseeded team won every single game. What do you think that shows about the structure of this playoff?
The underseeded team won how many of these games?
7.
7 of 11.
Right. And
Yeah.
they went 7-0 after the first round.
And so that doesn't even speak to the awkwardness of this bye system, because that only accounts for 2 of those. So that means that 5 of the 9 that don't even involve those teams were, in a sense, misseeded, you could say.
Well, yeah, you're Ohio
I
State.
know that you
Buckeye.
don't like the system and don't. I don't see, though. I think it's flawed. I have yet to determine how it's flawed or how it can be corrected, I should say, because I think that it was still a productive playoff and a fair to most playoff. It was not perfect. Oregon got screwed. Ohio State somewhat got screwed. They just played through it.
They got misseeded.
They got misseeded. Yeah.
They should have not been ranked behind Penn State.
No.
They, in my opinion, they should have been number 6. They should have been where Penn State was at.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just found that as an interesting.
But they still just played right through it, obviously.
Yeah, but they're the best team in the country. They were clearly the best team in the country after the Michigan game. And I would say it's weird because Oregon was the most consistent team, but they have no way of proving it because for like the last month, because they got sent home by being crushed by Ohio State. But I just feel bad for them, honestly, because nobody talks about them. Nobody gives them any credit. They're probably one of the 4 best teams. They are one of the 4 best teams this year, and just nobody cares.
Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to rank them. They might be number 2. We'll see. I'm going to give that a look here late tonight, but and tomorrow. But yeah, they just happened to run into the best team in the country earlier in the playoff, and so that in the way this playoff is so spread out, that seems like it was 3 months ago.
Right. Now, if you had to rank Ohio State's teams in terms of easiest to hardest to get to this path, how would you rank them?
During the playoff, the 4
Right.
playoff teams?
Yes, how would you rank them? Because to me, Notre Dame was the 3rd best team Ohio State played during this playoff.
Yes, I would agree with you. I believe Oregon was the best team. Texas, maybe I wouldn't even distinguish those 2 teams. I think it's extremely close, but I'll give Oregon the nod, even though the Buckeyes crushed them. And obviously, Texas gave them the toughest game. Texas is the 2nd best team they played, Notre Dame, and then Tennessee.
Right. And to me, this just result validates Texas. Because I know there was a lot of doubt about Texas, their soft SEC schedule. But for them to they were competitive against Ohio State more than any other team when they were on this streak.
True.
And that's got to be accounted for a lot. I mean, it's arguable they were only 2 plays from winning this game. If they punch it in on 2nd and go for 2,
Sure.
I would have gone for 2 in that situation. Because you're not, you got to kill Ohio State when you have the chance to kill them and beat them down. And that would have been the way to do it. But, Mark, I'm not sure if you've seen next year's odds yet. Texas is favored to win next year's national championship. What are just your initial thoughts about that?
Well, I just made a comment about that a couple minutes ago, which my basic 3 points were that Sark has proven to be an elite coach. So I needed to have that proven to me a couple years ago. Texas obviously made an excellent hire. When they hired him, I did not predict disaster or predict failure, but I did say, I don't see it. What has he done in his past that has shown he has basically taken one of the elite programs in college football and one of the tier 2 or tier 3 programs in Washington that's fully capable of course, going to national championship games and underperformed. But obviously he has proven to be an excellent coach, and he's brought the program to a status that it's expected to be. The recruiting is outstanding. So even though they're going to lose a ton of players, just like everybody else does, they're going to be well equipped, and they spend a ton of money in the portal. They have the resources as much as anybody in college football. And then number 3, Arch Manning's going to be their quarterback. And I think we saw enough of him, and scouts and coaches have raved enough about him that he should be ready to take the reins.
Correct. The most questionable call, I think, from this game that's going to hurt Notre Dame was that 3rd and 11 when they did the all-out pressure and they just left Smith one-on-one. Why would you do that, Mark? Why not just play a zone, play up the sticks, get Ohio State in a 4th and 4, 4th and 5 situation, force them to punt it back? Why not just do that?
Well, that seems like the way to go, obviously, since that didn't work. And this is a team that lived and died as a man-to-man team, coverage team. And Al Golden is really good at what he does.
I get that, Mark, but I'm just not a fan of all-out pressures on those situations. I know it costed the Jets a few years ago when they were trying to win a game and they went all-out blitz against the Raiders, I believe it was, and they got torched for a 60-yard touchdown, and they were like 0-8. You know, they were just one horrible team. They were like 0-8, 0-9 at that point, something like that, and it didn't work for them. It just doesn't work. I see it work less than it should.
Well, I also see situations where had Will Howard been given the time to just stand and pat the ball in the pocket and found a receiver with an elite receiving core to convert that the criticism could have been, well, why do you allow him just to stand back there and pick his spot?
Oh, yeah.
And deliver the ball. So
I get you.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
I get you. And Will Howard made some key plays with his legs today. I thought his legs were the X factor in this game. He got plenty of times in a short yardage situation where he converted with his legs. What do you think about Will Howard? Is he a clear upgrade from Kyle McCord now? I know that was a whole conversation in the offseason.
Oh, yeah. Yes, he is. Absolutely. Yeah. Although Kyle McCord's a fine quarterback, he's probably a top 15 quarterback in college football.
Yeah, he had a great year at Syracuse, but Will Howard was just able to make those plays with his legs. That was the difference throughout this postseason, and Kyle McCord doesn't have it. So,
and that's one of the 2 points I made when Will Howard was signed by Ohio State. He should be better than Kyle McCord. Number one, he's bringing 2.5 years of experience to the role as a starting quarterback that Kyle McCord brought 0. So we're not comparing Will Howard to Kyle McCord now. Will Howard was replacing a completely inexperienced Kyle McCord at the start of his 2023 season. And number two, like you just said, it's a huge advantage to a quarterback now that not that Will Howard is Lamar Jackson, but when you can see a gap in the line and it's 3rd and 7 and you can take off and pick up a first down, as opposed to Kyle McCord always was going to choose to try to thread a needle, even if somebody wasn't open.
Correct. Mark, the 50 hours of punishment for Michigan are now complete. The Lions lost. They lost their offensive coordinator, and their biggest rival won the national championship. So I'm sure that's great enjoyment for you. I guess next time you're going to have call-in shows after the Super Bowl. Is that right? When the Chiefs win back-to-back Super Bowls?
Well, I think we can show up at some point before that, but that could be one time. Yes, we typically go live after the Super Bowl, and I
need to have my annual
those shows.
I need to have my annual Chiefs are the greatest thing to ever happen to the history of the world talk.
Well, all I heard the other day was how the Chiefs were the darlings of the NFL and given every break known to mankind. Now, I don't know that to be the case. I didn't watch the game, but that's what I was hearing.
Well, it's just people that are upset that they're just not as good as Patrick Mahomes. He's already got, I think he's tied or has the second most wins by a quarterback in playoff history right now. His worst year is losing the AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
If he wins the Super Bowl this year, Mark, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. Which will make it even worse for Michigan fans. Tom Brady's not even in the Hall of Fame, and that was one of the prize of Michigan talking points. We have the greatest quarterback of all time. No, it's going to be Texas Tech in 3 weeks.
Well, how many Super Bowls? What's he, 3-1?
Yeah, I think he's 3-1 or 3-2. They kind of all just run together at a certain point. It's like Alabama during that Saban run. It's hard to keep track of everything we've been to. I think 3-1 because we lost to Brady.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah, no, it was not 2020. We lost to Brady. There was a full crowd. That was the one we lost to Brady. Was the one where the Super Bowl was hosted in Tampa Bay Stadium. That was the first home Super Bowl.
Okay. What was the COVID year? Who played in the Super Bowl? Was that Bengals Rams?
It might have been.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the college football front?
On the college football front, Mark, is what do we have to look forward to? What do we have to look forward to
during this off season? The off season here is almost better than the season. Of all the things we're going to talk about, all the things we're going to present, all the debates.
Well, Mark, I'm going to get going because I can't hear you. So I don't know if anybody else can hear you or not. So I'm going to get.
I don't know what happened there. All right. Can everyone else hear me? Hello, hello, hello. All right. Yes. Again, we're going to do all-time rankings. We're going to revisit all the national championship seasons and rewrite history. I know some people get annoyed by that and think that I'm taking like history in my own hands. No, I don't have that kind of power. But we just don't take the word of AP voters and other folks that don't know how to evaluate football resumes. So we're going to do that. And yes, maybe we talked about Ohio State and Michigan and the rivalry there and the the argument about all-time numbers and more recent numbers. Maybe I'll invite the Michigan guys over here. We'll have a debate. How's that sound? That would be fun. Top 25 that actually makes sense is the first point of contention. You need to work on that. So I'm going to get right to work on that. We don't have any more callers. Appreciate you all being here. The Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for the contributions. You are so kind. And please hit the like button on your way out. And again, Ohio State is the national champion of 2024, winning over Notre Dame. 30 guys live also on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Our next show with me involved, we've got the hello. Got to get this one out. We've got our recruiting and portal show. It's every Tuesday with Leanne Herring and myself every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. That's on the recruiting channel. I'm going to drop that link and do a post on all the channels so you can follow us there. Again, the recruiting and transfer portal update live show. That's Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. We've got the Iowa show at 5:30 Eastern. We've got a whole bunch of other shows that I'm not involved in that I'm not going to try to remember at this point. But if you want to see me, it's Leanne Herring and myself at 1 p.m. Eastern time with the recruiting show, and at 5:30 Eastern with Corey Bratta from the Hawkeye of the Storm, where we will talk Iowa football. And maybe I'll mention that Ohio State won the national championship. All right. Right here at the Voice of College Football.